Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. So today we're going to be talking about textile resolution and the layout of our UVs. So what the hell is textile resolution? Well, textile resolution is a principle. It's called textile, by the way. You can look it up and get a little bit more information about it. It's a whole theory about how to properly optimize the resolution of your UV so that you get the most out of your characters. We're going to be simplifying it a little bit here because textile usually has more weight in environments. Characters usually get like a get out of jail free card, and they get a little bit of an exception here on the textile resolution. But what is it? Textile is the amount of resolution or amount of pixels per surface. Okay, so if you have, let's say, a plane, and this is like the base of your character. In this plane, let's say it's 100 centimeters. So that's just 1 meter, right? It's 1 meter square. If I apply a 2K texture to this element, I'm going to have a specific set of textile resolution. And there's a very easy way in which you can check what textile resolution you have. If you go here into your UV editor and you select your UV and you go up here into the transform section, you can go all the way down into the textile density. Make sure that you input the size that you're going to be using for that specific geometry. Let's say this is just a plane, and select here get. So here you can see that we have a 20 textile resolution for this plane. So that means that we're going to have 20 pixels per unit, which means it should mean something about 20 pixels per meter square or something. I'm a little bit rusty on the specifics there, but this means that we're going to have a very nicely distributed element here. So that means that we can do a very good close-up here, and we're not going to get a lot of pixelation. Of course, if you go a little bit closer, you're going to start seeing the pixelation. But from a distance, this is going to look really, really well. So what do we want here? We want to make sure that all of our objects are in a good resolution. We want to make sure that the character looks the best possible. So what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to grab everything here. I'm going to go into my UV editor right now. I'm going to select all the UV shells, and the first thing I need to do, this is very important, you can see that we have a vastly different resolution for each specific piece. For instance, the head is really dense, really high quality, while the rest of the body is really low quality. And we want to make sure everything is in the same exact resolution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here into my UV editor. I'm going to grab all the UVs from all the pieces. I'm going to go into modify, layout. Let's reset this, and I'm going to select a couple of things. First of all, I want to make sure that everything's packed together so that no island is overlapping. That means that even though there are different objects, they're going to share the same texture map. Then I want to say shell prescaling, preserve UV ratios. This is very important. I need to make sure that this is preserve UV ratios so that all the UVs are properly proportionate in the object, so that no object has more resolution than the other. Shell pre-rotation. Do I want to rotate the shells? I'm going to say yeah, you can rotate them on the horizontal axis. That should be fine. Or actually, no, sorry. We want off here. So rotate shells here. Now, this is something that I'm going to use later. So just preserve UV ratios. Now, down here, I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to be using a 4K map. And I want a couple of things here. Shell padding. How much distance do I want from each island? I'm going to say 8. And tile padding, 8 as well. Because I want to make sure that no island is touching each other and no island is touching the border of the UV map. And I'm going to hit apply. If everything goes right, you're going to see this, which is like a Tetris thing where every single island now fits in a single UV map. And if we look at our character here, opening this thing with the little squares here, you should see that every object now has the same resolution. But we have a problem. The problem is that the resolution, even though they're all sharing the same element here, might be a little bit low. Let's check it out. Remember, we had 20 points of textile density with the plane. If we hit here get, we only had 8 points. So there's way more resolution on this plane, or the plane that we had here on the bottom, than what we have on the whole character. Why is that? Well, because of course the plane was just a plane, and this guy has so many ins and outs, so many changes in silhouette, that the surface area that I need to cover with a 2K map is not enough. Even if I move this to a 4K map, it's still 17. It's still not as good as the floor, and we want this guy to be super, super good. So what are we going to do? We're actually going to have two maps. We're going to have two UV maps for the character. So what I'm going to do now is the following. We're going to be using a technique called UDIMs. And even though we're not going to be using UDIMs for the rendering, because we're going to have like two separate maps, we are going to have UDIMs to make it easier for us to texture in Substance Painter. And this is how it's going to work. I'm going to grab these things right here, and I'm going to select all the UV shells. I'm going to go into Modify, Layout, and I'm going to change the options here in the Tiles section from 1 to 2. What this is going to do is, instead of having everything in one island, I'm going to have 2 different islands here, and I'm going to say Apply. So now, all the islands got bigger, right? If I select everything here, and we select 2K and say Get, look at that, 12.25, which is really good. That means when we do our 4096, what's the word? When we do a 4096 maps, which are the resolution we're going to be using, the 4K maps, that means we're going to have a really, really good resolution, similar to what we had with the floor. So yeah, that's good. I'm going to make this even easier for you to understand, because sometimes the resolution becomes a little bit, what's the word? Confusing. And the way I can explain it to you a little bit better is the following. If you go into into Google and look for UV Map Checker Modo, Modo is another 3D software. There's this UV map, or UV Checker Modo. There's this UV map that I really like because it has a very nice resolution. You can see that this is not 2K, this is actually 1600. So I'm gonna save this image. I'm gonna save it on my desktop for now, just for quickness sake. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select all of these elements. I'm gonna assign a new material, and I'm gonna select a Lambert. I'm gonna call this material, let's erase. Let's call this soldier underscore matte. And in the color file, I'm gonna insert the file that I just downloaded. So let me open this real quick. Come on, come on, come on. Just a second here. We're going to be adding our map, and that way we should be able to see how well the resolution actually stacks. Why? Because the black and white checkerboard that we see when we open the UV editor, it actually has some sort of scaling going on. So even if you go super close to the character, you won't see the pixelation on the squares. You might see it on the letters, but not the squares. And in this case, we can actually see the pixelation here on the squares. See? So this is the resolution we're going to see the texture if we're this close to the character, which is not bad, to be honest. Like, as you can see here, it's actually pretty decent. And if we see at this distance, which is a normal game distance, it's even better. So let me show you this. I'm going to go into the Hypershade. And remember, this was a 1.6 or 1600 map. We're going to have 4K maps. So this means that we need to repeat this UV about 2 times. Let's say 2.2 times. I'm not sure about the specific math, but 2.2 should do the trick. So now, look at this. Like, this is a new resolution that we're going to have. Like, we have to get really this close to start seeing all the details of the pixelation. If we see it from this, it's going to look super, super high poly. We can even turn on like the anti-aliasing thing, and it should give us a little bit of an extra push there. But just by having that, I now know that this is going to be a great resolution. Even this distance, it looks really, really good. Like, we barely see the pixelation. It's not until we get like this close. And in games, you never get this close, right? Like, this is the normal distance in which you will see your character. So by having this UDIM distribution, it makes it a lot easier to know how things should be. Now, if you want to, and I'm not gonna do it in here because I want to keep everything light and game ready. If you want to, you could do 4 tiles and you're gonna get even more resolution. However, that's not normal. 2 tiles for a character is usually a good amount, because this means that for like a 4K map, the head is pretty much gonna get like a full 2K resolution here. Now, I'm gonna do one last thing for this thing, and I'm gonna do this as well, not as fast as I can, but I'm gonna try and be what's the word? Relatively fast. So what I want to do here is, even though we're going to be using these things as a, what's the word? Even though we're going to be using this as UDIMs, so there's going to be 2 texture sets for the elements, I want to make sure that all the things that are in the same shell or island remain on the same map. That's because if I want things to project ambient occlusion and shadows from one to another, I need to make sure that everything remains in the same map. So I'm going to go into UV shell. I'm going to select all the shells, this shells, and this shells, so all the prop shells, and I'm gonna move them to the side. There we go. And I'm gonna select this one as well, and we're gonna move this to this side. So what I'm trying to do is I'm gonna try and see if I can fit all of these islands in just one place. Now I know just from seeing this that that won't be possible. There's gonna be a little bit of a difficulty, or it's gonna be slightly difficult to fit everything here. So I'm gonna make a decision here, and I'm gonna grab, for instance, all the boots and the soles, and probably the pants as well, and move this here to this side. So that seems a little bit more manageable. And now the fun begins. We are gonna try and see if we can fit this Tetris style into their specific places. So I'm gonna try to move and rotate all of these elements so that they fit here. And the rules that I'm gonna follow are as follows. I'm gonna try to make sure that it's easy to read so that I know where things are gonna be. Now I'm gonna make one exception for the face. Since the face is really important, really important. Let me get rid of the elements that we don't need. Since the face and all its elements like the mouth, teeth, and everything are really important because that's the main part of the character, I'm actually gonna scale them slightly more. Not much, just slightly. So the difference between the face and every other object is not as visible. You can see here that it's not super visible, but it is slightly visible. And it's just to get a little bit of an extra punch there for the face, because that's, again, the most important part. So now that we have that, I'm going to try to order everything in such a way that's easy to read. So for instance, the head's going to be there. All of these, the teeth, ears, and everything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to place them here. And I'm going to try to make some sort of conglomeration here of elements. Again, in such a way that whenever I look at this map, I know what I'm seeing. Like I'm like, okay, yeah, fine. This is where all the teeth are. This is where all the little nostrils and everything is. Of course, don't let any island touch another island. This empty spaces here, those are really crucial for us because, again, that's the kind of thing that Maya doesn't know exists, or it's difficult for Maya to understand that there's free space in there. So for instance, I can move all of this teeth all the way here, close to the face. I could even, I'm pretty sure if I move these guys enough, I could fit all of these guys right here. And that's going to free so much space on this other side to place everything else that I need. So for instance, all of these teeth, let's place them here. Perfect. So I'm going to grab all of these things and move them a little bit more so that I don't get distracted. Now, for instance, the belt. This is the belt. Well, let's move it in such a way that's in the same direction as the belt, which should be, yeah, something like that. Just move them all the way down here. This is the chest. So the chest is going to go there. This is the other part of the chest, or the back actually. Let's go get that here. This, I'm not sure what this is. Probably like an arm or something. See how it fits really nicely there? Perfect. This is the neck. Let's have it right there. This is another piece. Let's see what this is. Okay, it's the arm. So that here is the shoulder. Perfect. So in this case, I'm trying again to make sure that everything is facing the same direction. This is because we're going to be using a lot of cloth patterns and textures. And if the things are going like on a different direction than the stitching of a cloth, it will look really, really weird. And we can change that in the texture department, like in Substance Painter. But to be honest, it's just easier to have this like this. There we go. So you can see here that we still have a lot of free space. That's good. Because if we have free space, that means that we could grab everything and make it slightly bigger. But I'm not gonna do that yet because we might need the extra space for other props. Like if all of these props don't fit, and I don't think they will, we're gonna need this extra area here to fit a couple of them. So probably like the skirt here, we should be able to get it in here. So here's where the Tetris begins, where you start moving things around so that everything fits. For instance, this one, I'm gonna make it just slightly smaller, just so we can fit it there. That won't affect the resolution or anything. and it just makes it easier for everyone. One hand there. A couple of other hands here. Remember, don't touch any other island and don't touch the borders. That's the most important part. And then this final hand. For instance, this thing, like these two things, which are the back sides of the arm plate protections. Since they're not as important, we can twist them and give them a different place, and that way we can fit the hand in a more easy to access space. So there we go. So now half of the body is ready there, and we just need to organize this other half here. You can see that it is going to be quite a challenge because we have a lot of pieces, especially here, for instance, like the pants. So let's start with the pants there. Now, the reason I divided lower body and upper body is because most of the parts from the lower body don't interact with the lower body, upper with lower. And that means that we don't have to worry about any sort of, let's say, what's the name, like ambient occlusion or anything like affecting each individual place. These are the boots, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to have them there side by side. This is a prop. So a quick way to do this is just, for instance, select all the shoes. That way only the islands related to the shoes will show here. I missed the palette and the gums. We need to get them in the character section in a moment. So let's try to get everything that has to do with shoes. Let's try to keep it near the shoes. The soles, for instance, they're not really important, so we can make them smaller since we're not really going to see them. Unless there's going to be a very important story reason where, I don't know, he steps on a patch of blood or something. In that case, then yeah, we definitely need to have this in a better way. But in this case, I think we can get away with smaller footprints, and that way we save a little bit of resolution for other important elements of our character. Let's go real quick here for the gums. It's really important. Now the gums are not as important as other parts of the body. I think we can fit it here. If we need to make them slightly smaller, that's fine. Like that shouldn't make a huge difference. Now these areas here, these are going to be important. For instance, this island here, the front faces of my elements, those are the most important, right? The front ones. The back ones, we don't need to be super worried about. So I'm going to give priority to these elements right here. Because again, these are the ones that actually hold most of the detail of our elements. So I want these guys to have a little bit more resolution. Try to use as every single space as nicely as possible. Don't waste any space. There we go. And now we start using or placing the rest of the elements. See, we're gonna have enough space even to spare. So all of this are the different flaps of the element. This is the back side of that thing right there. So I usually like to go with the bigger pieces first, and then we do the smaller pieces. Oh, okay, so I made a mistake here. So this guy right here, this guy's crossing. This guy's going into the other island, and that's a no-no, a very bad no-no. So I'm gonna move this, get a little bit more space here, and try to fit this right here. There we go. There we go. I'm pretty sure we can move this guy a little bit more down here. There we go. And then here, we continue here. This is a flap of the backs, I'm sure. It's one of the details here. It's another one of the details. So things are getting tighter and tighter. That's fine. I'm gonna try and place this here on the corner, like so. See, so utilizing the spaces the best possible way. Back of the insignia, Then we have that one there. Maybe we can fit this one here if we do enough movement. Yeah, see? Both of them fit right there very nicely. Because remember, at the end of the day, the name of this thing, this is called a UV map. So it needs to read as a map. We need to be able to look at it and say, oh yeah, of course, this is the back, this is the belt, this is where we have one of the flaps of the bags and stuff. So it's really, really important that your UV map is clear in the way it's presented. I remember when I was a student, teachers were really really strict about the UV maps. They wanted very nice looking UV maps. So that's why all of my UV maps are usually very, very clean. Nowadays, I've seen students who do like quick and dirty UV maps, and as long as they do amazing textures, no one really cares. And that is, I mean, it's okay up to a certain point. But to be honest, this is more of a matter of a craft. Like you need to be a master of your craft, and by mastering the way you do this sort of elements, that speaks volumes about your work ethic and everything. So we're just missing this one right here. This is an important one because it's the front of one of the bags. So this is a side flap. Let's move this guy up here and try and accommodate this one right there. Perfect. So every single piece is now in 2 maps. Now, I'm going to do one last quick thing here. If for any reason you feel that this doesn't work for you, the UDIM thing doesn't work for you and it's freaking you out, don't worry. What you might have to do is grab all of these guys and just move them here. Divide your character and all the props into different objects and then move them around. However, I do suggest you try this method, the UDIM method, because it's going to be just easier at the end of the day. So yeah, that's it, guys. This is it. We finished UVs, we finished the layout, and we're now almost ready to go into Substance and do the texturing. The only thing we're missing is the naming convention and the preparation of the files before we go. But we're going to be talking about that in the next video. So hold on tight, and I'll see you back next time. Bye-bye.